Welcome to the podcast where we talk about all things blended families. I share my personal journey, again I repeat, my personal journey from a stepmom's perspective. It is also a time for reflections and new realizations. Join me as I try to unpack the last 16 years of my life. This is my story, and in case of any exaggeration or dramatization, trust me, it's purely coincidental. To Mike and my family, and also my extended family, sorry, not sorry. Well, this is episode 5 of the StepMum podcast. I didn't think I'll be here. I wasn't really convinced at the beginning. I was really doubtful if I'm going to hack this podcast thing. But here I am doing another 5th episode, and maybe soon we will have season 2, but let's see how it goes. Today's video is about disciplining your stepchild, and it's very different for me, during my time, disciplining meant, being beaten, being shouted at. Our parents didn't have a lot of patience. I think it is also very traumatic. And I think people who are born in my era, when they hear the word discipline, they start shaking, you get anxious. But that's not the kind of discipline I'm talking about, not that one. So here it's about trying to ensure that we all live together in a respectful way, and every house has its rules, and this is the part where we extend grace to each other. It is not easy for the children. Now we have a different home. I'll say it in my context. Now I am the dad's wife, and so they are used to different rules and different regulations. Like for me, when I came into the picture, there were many things that shocked me, a lot of things, because my idea of upbringing and how I was brought up is very different from what I met when I started becoming a stepmom. It really challenged me to see it in a very different way. It was tough for me in the beginning. To be honest, I'm very strict. I'm a very strict mom. I like when rules are being followed. Make your bed, remove your plate. Let's be courteous to each other. Be neat, be organized. Really. I am a strict mom. But when I began to live with my stepkids, it really humbled me. I put myself in their shoes, and we decided with Mike that for the first few years, he would be the main disciplinarian. He'll be the one disciplining the children. So for me, mine was to ensure to help him in terms of that, support him, let him know when the children have done this or done that. But on that note also, si ati kila kitu unaambia baba yao. You don't wait for the man to come at the door and you're already complaining. Not everything needs to be addressed, because you have to understand here that there are so many feelings, there's a lot of confusion. The children don't trust you, they just met you and they're not sure if you'll stay. There's a lot of resistance, and even if it were you who was a stepchild, you'll resist, because you're like, why is she telling us to follow this? She's not our mom. That's a very big one. She's not our mom. So the first few years, it's better if the father disciplines them. And then over time, when you win the children's trust and confidence, then you can discipline. Right now, in my situation, I'm the disciplinarian, which I'm the bad cop, which is a role I really don't mind. There has to be a bad cop, good cop. Right now, I discipline the children primarily, and it's a tough issue when it's a stepmom rather than a stepdad. You see, a stepmom is staying with the children longer than a dad. A dad goes to work, comes in, doesn't interact as much with the children. So for a stepmom, it's really tough, because you're there seeing every little thing, and you don't want the children to feel like you're muamulika. You're not coming to try and create a bad picture in front of their dad, that they are bad kids or they're indisciplined. So you have to categorize the mistakes. There's some, I'd look and be like, wacha tu yopite, wacha tu iende. For example, I'll give an example. For example, they're from visiting their mother's house, and when they come to my house, obviously there's that resistance. And maybe when they come to my house, we seem like we're going 3 steps backward, because here we are doing this. On the other side, they're doing something different. For example, I'm very, very particular about being neat. cleaning after yourself. I remember the first time I told one of my children that carry your plate to the kitchen, they looked at me in shock. And I was like, you're the one who's eaten the food, carry your plate to the kitchen. And for me, it was a no-brainer. And so it was not that sometimes the children didn't want to listen, but it was also a struggle to adjust. As we continued and they stayed with us, we were the main household that they were staying in for longer. It got better. But I'll give you a few hacks that I used. So I got a big manila paper, and me and the dad together with the kids, you can imagine, together with the kids. This is not how I was raised. Children did not have a voice. There was no one who alerted you that do this, don't do this. The moment you do something, you know from the corner of the room when your mother looks at you, a shoe is landing on you. That's where I came from. And here I am negotiating with the children. But you know what? Different times. So I got a big manila paper with a marker. We sat down with the kids and the dad, and we talked about the rules of the house and the consequences. And then I stuck it on the stairs. I still remember. I stuck it on the stairs where everyone could see. Am I not a genius? Everyone could see, because it was important to get their perspective. Also, if someone has done a mistake, you don't really have to deliberate on it. You're like, there are the consequences. We talked about it. That didn't mean it wasn't hard, but it helped when they felt like, okay, they'll hear us and we'll be heard. Another thing is you and your partner need to be a team player. And I know most mothers out there, they're not even stepmothers. Most mothers are the ones who have to discipline the children. So you keep looking like you're the bad guy. So it's men, stepfathers, please, let's be a team so that whatever we agreed on, you're reinforcing also on the other side. So you and your partner have to be a team and ensure that we speak the same language. I know most of you would ask, why would you care about disciplining the child? It's your stepkid. But I think if you're here to do the right thing and if you're here to stay, whether it's your biological child or not, you discipline them. For example, if my sister's kids came over, my cousins or any child who comes under my care, there are rules to be followed. So if you want to do the right thing, if you actually want to do right by the child, discipline them. Love without boundaries is not love, and kids can sense it. Kids can sense, I don't care. You know what? Do whatever you want. For me, you're not my kids anyway. So every parent, step or not, should discipline their child. I want to give you a story, but because for the anonymity of my family, I'll use different names, so disclaimer. So there was one day, one of my children, Jane, brought a boy home. So you're allowed to bring your friend, even if it's a boy. So here Jane brought a boy home, but my rules were always you stay within the places where people could see you. There was no going up the stairs, there was no going into the room. So for me, that was a big deal. I come from a place, you should not even be talking to a boy, leave alone bringing them home. So I entered the house and I looked at the shoes, where we keep the shoes, and I was very clear that those are shoes for a man, and it definitely wasn't Mike's shoes. So I came straight into the sitting room. I didn't see anyone upstairs, and there they are. And in that situation, to be honest, it was a tough one. I really got angry. I thought of beating this other child, and I remembered they're not my own. So I took them and told them to go downstairs, and I embarrassed the child. And it was a tough one. It was a tough situation. But after that, I sat down and explained to them why. Because if we all bring our, I don't know if boyfriend or girlfriend, I don't know what it was then, if we all bring our boyfriend and girlfriends home and they go to our rooms, I think I will be running a brothel instead of a home. So that are some of the scenarios that played in terms of disciplining. I will also mention that there was a time when I used to think the children are doing something to purposely punish me. And now having, you grow, you mature, and you see that they didn't even have you in mind. The child is not even wanting to hurt you. The child is just being a child. Don't look at it as if it wasn't my child, they wouldn't be doing this. No, they're just being children. They're just being teenagers. They're making mistakes. They're experimenting. So they're not personally attacking you. So remove too much feelings from it. The child is just being a child. And even now, when they're adults, sometimes you have to discipline them. And disciplining is not necessarily beating them. I think consequences, knowing what pinches, and also learning your children. For me, it was learning my stepchildren. Imagine learning strangers. So I couldn't have blanket consequences because every child has what pinches them, what will hurt most, or what will send the message home. Funny enough, whenever in our house, Mike would get really mad, and he's those kind of fathers who will beat you once a year if you do major stuff, or once every 2 years, but he gives you a good beating. And so at the end of the day, when it would reach sometimes, or will reach that level, I really used to feel sorry for them as much as the child has done a mistake. So, yeah, I didn't like seeing that. I don't think it's necessary if we all follow the rules, respect each other, but definitely children will push boundaries. It's nothing personal, and don't not discipline your child. They will definitely get the vibe that you don't care about them and you really aren't about that, So when the kids get older, it gets easier in terms of they know the rules and the consequences. But here, they're talking about teenagers or young adults. Beating is not necessarily the biggest punishment you can give or the biggest consequence. I think as they got older, the one thing that used to work is just to not give them any money. And I mean not give them any money is even the father is not giving them money. Because what usually happens, one parent says, I'm not giving money, the other one is Zuku, and they're giving money. So for us, it was not giving them money. It works up to now because the children want to go out, want to hang with their friends, they're used to a certain lifestyle. And so that will get their attention. And we can be starved of money for a few months even, and that is painful. It's really by week 2, after they've spent their savings, week 3, their things start getting clearer that, what, wameamua. And so that is the biggest punishment that I've given. If I would say the most challenging thing about disciplining as a step-parent is physical punishment, beating them. That was tough. I've never beaten any of my stepchildren, and you will be shocked that the children actually get affected. Now, when Sean came into the picture, my biological child, they could see my parenting is different. More tough on Sean, I have more expectations, when I get annoyed, I'll take a belt and beat them. And one of the kids one day, my stepkids one day asked me, Mom, why are you disciplining Sean different from us? Then I said, if I was to beat you or if I was to be harsh on you, then you'd feel like I'm not your mom. And then she challenged me and she said, but you're already past it. You're already past that. It's okay to discipline us. It's okay if I do something wrong for you to beat me or to give consequences. And then it really hit me that the children, we're at a level where we've accepted each other, and they look at me, discrimination, and they're asking why you're doing it in a different way. So it took months for me to absorb it and digest it. And now I do the disciplining with confidence. We are past the place of doubting each other. And I'm also very conscious that the disciplining or the parenting or disciplining should be equal across the board. I'm not tough on Sean, and then I'm very tough on Sean and not tough on them. So that was a challenge my stepchild put out there. And it's a journey. There's no manual in this thing. And so step-parents, I would say there, please give quality parenting to your children, discipline them. Definitely in the beginning, it will not be you. You agree with your partner. And children know when they are loved. Children know when rules and punishment, consequences come with love. So, yeah. Another lesson that I have learned as a parent, during my time, the biggest punishment would be to be spanked, to be beaten. And there was this thing of, you're not too old for me to beat you. My mother will remind you, you're not too old for me to beat you or to embarrass you. So this step-parenting journey of separating adults, like for me, young adults, first of all, I wasn't prepared. COVID times hit hard. That was the first time I stayed with my young adults for the longest, because they used to have different breaks in terms of their school break. So it was very challenging, and I had to find ways, it's catching up. You're like, what is going to hurt the most? Then the day I realized that not giving them money hits home, when they start using their savings. And the longest I've ever gone, I think it's 2 months. And let me tell you, you can guess, was it a boy or a girl? Guess. Guess, guys. Yeah. Yeah. So the boys are tough. The girls cave in, they want to make their nails, they want to fix their hair. And I think also just girls can reason more with you. And they also don't put things in their heart. We will talk to each other, we'll disagree, bang the door and be like, I hate you. And I'll be like, I hate you too. Yeah, boys are different. They're actually a big challenge for me. Personally, boys are a big challenge to be able to raise boys, because they're quiet and they keep things to themselves and they take things to heart. And so when you're supposed to discipline a boy, it's tough. It's tough for me. But here we are. I made it, and I'm happy that now I'm able to discipline my children without having to second guess myself. We've already formed good relationship where they know I come from a place of love. And to be honest, there are even times, they know that there are things dad will not understand, so mom covers us up. If, for example, someone had been given permission to go out and the dad is like, show up at 4 a.m., I'm thinking, 4 a.m. ndio sherehe imeanza kushika. This is short time. And then it's telling you to come back at 4 a.m. So sometimes I would open the door at 6 a.m., the dad is asleep, doesn't know. Because also don't forget, I'm younger than their father. Like, my age gap between the kids and me is not too big. So I would understand where they're coming from in terms of going out with their friends, in terms of bringing their girlfriend or their boyfriend at home. So there were situations where I'd be more understanding. And also, to be honest, there are things that I wouldn't tell their father it's not necessary. You don't need to paint such a picture for him. So if it's something that's really disappointing and I know it will really break his heart, especially for girls, I would sit down with them and we'll just square it off there. So over time, you get wisdom, you get to understand each child and how to discipline and what works. And so that's the journey of disciplining my stepkids. I hope I've answered most of the questions that people have. And it's a scary thing in the beginning, but over time, just ensure that the children know you trust them, you love them, and be clear about the rules and consequences, and don't be too punitive. And if you have your bio child, just know they are watching how you're disciplining him or her, and they don't also want to feel like you love your child more than them. They also accept you as their mother, and they don't mind you playing your mother role. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, learned something. I think in episode 6, I might include an answer and question episode. Let's see how it goes. And just so that it is known, I do not negotiate with terrorists. So please, that should be made clear, and everyone knows that. And everyone knows that in this house, even Sean. But to be honest, as much as I'm a disciplinarian, I'm the one who has the most softest heart. Maybe because I grew up in a very sort of a military home. In my house, there was no, and during my time, kids were to be seen, not to be heard. So yeah, that's my journey of disciplining, and I hope to see you in episode 6.